Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Sam Priestley, and we're joined by Emma.
Hello.
As always. Emma, as you can tell, I'm very excited for today's topic.
This must mean it's something really dry.
It is your favourite topic. It is accounting, and more specifically, accounting for Amazon FBA.
Oh, wow.
It's something which, it sounds dry, but it is really important. And it's something you know nothing about.
Yeah, and you are very passionate about it.
I'm not sure passionate is the right word.
I think it is.
I don't think so. It's important though, because it's really difficult to find a good accountant to do your Amazon business. And that is because Amazon businesses are very simple in one respect, but they're also very complicated. So they're simple. They're often one-man bands. Pretty much all transactions happen on Amazon. There's not much else going on really. There's not huge payroll difficulties, all that kind of stuff. But they're also really complicated because they're going to be multi-country, often quite large turnover, large profit, lots of things going on. If you're in America, you're talking about loads of different states, all with slightly different rules you've got to deal with, all with different accounting requirements. And that means if you go to your local accountant and you explain what your business is to them, they'll probably price you up as if you're one of these huge businesses that covers multiple countries and charge you accordingly. On the other hand, if they think of you as a really small business, they won't have any idea how to deal with all these different places and all the different kind of requirements to go along with it. And that's why we're doing this podcast, because I get asked quite a lot about that. Can you recommend a good Amazon FBA accountant? The answer is, I can't really. I think you've got a few options. You can either do it all yourself, which is what we do with Pipe House Gin, which is what I do with another business that's also on Amazon, generally the smaller ones. You can hire a big firm and pay a lot of money, which is something I don't do, but I do have friends who are on that level above, who they're doing kind of 8 figures profit and they're spending £200,000 a year on accountancy.
Yeah, and it's worth it to them.
And it's worth it for them. It's worth having an accountant who knows exactly what's going on in Germany and has a team out there if you're doing kind of 7 figures turnover in Germany. But when I'm doing just a little bit, that's kind of like a little side thing. I'm only really selling there because it's easy to sell and Amazon deals with all the logistics. It doesn't make sense for me to have a whole team there and to pay the same again in every country, every region that I'm doing my accounting in. And then the final option is to kind of translate your Amazon business, the bookkeeping side of it, into something that a normal local accountant will understand and then get them to do the accounting.
Well, that sounds quite good.
That's the middle ground, and that's, I think, what is the best option for most people. And that's what I do with my biggest business, my biggest Amazon business, which does makes a lot of money, but not enough to justify spending £100,000 a year on accounting. So instead we spend, I think it's something like £1,200 a year on accounting. And
you're happy with that?
I'm happy with that. I think that's the middle ground, because there's a lot of problems that can come if you do your own accounting. And I do it for smaller businesses, and I do have guides on the blog which I will link to. But that once you get a little bit bigger, there are more problems, and you want to make the most of all the tax allowances that there are. And a local accountant will be able to tell you, how much you can get away with spending on your car, or what can you expense your holiday, that kind of thing, which is quite important. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about here. How do you translate your Amazon business, where it's an internet business, there's lots of data there, it produces reports for you, into something that a typical accountant can take and then generate your profit and loss sheets, your balance sheets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say, because with Amazon, everything's recorded. It's so easy to download a report and know exactly how many sales you're having and how much each element of your supply chain costs, and it's all recorded, unlike a more traditional, like a retail store, which is harder to record that stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's a simpler business, because these accountants are used to receiving a shoebox full of receipts, and then having to enter it all in manually.
That's crazy.
We don't have any of that nonsense. And for like a bit of a computer geek like myself, it's perfect. Let's delve in. And I think it's good to talk to you about this, because you know nothing about accounting. It's probably the thing that interests you least in the world. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, then I think that's a good benchmark.
Sounds good.
So if I sort of go a bit too in depth, please just bring me back.
I will do.
All right, so let's talk about what exactly is accounting. What is the aim of what we're trying to do? And it's simply to reconcile all the money that's coming in and out of the business. We basically want to record every transaction that takes place. So for Amazon business, that's really only happening in kind of two places. One of them is on Amazon itself. So on Amazon, they will take their monthly fee out of your balance that's on there. When there's a customer return, they'll deduct that from the balance that's sitting there. They'll all the FBA fees, all the closing fees come out of that balance. And then to add to the balance goes in all your sales. And then every 2 weeks, they'll reconcile that out and come up with a number, which they'll then send to your bank account. And that happens separately for every country that you're in with Amazon. So every 2 weeks in my bank account, we'll receive a transaction from Amazon UK, Amazon DE, which is Germany, Italy, Canada, Spain, America, all those types of stuff. So that's one side. You've got to work out all the transactions that are happening on Amazon, and then you've got to work out all the transactions that happen at your bank account or on your PayPal or whatever other kind of financial instruments you're using. So those will be those transactions you're getting from Amazon. They could also be other expenses such as paying your supplier, paying your freight forwarder, paying your car fee or whatever else you can get done.
Paying your duty on the gin.
Paying your duty on the gin, yeah, all those horrible expenses. Mm-hmm. And then once all that's reconciled and your bookkeeping software, which is what we're going to be talking about here, will know exactly what every transaction that's happened on your bank account is, you can just give that information to a normal accountant and he'll produce all the stuff that's needed for government submissions or for your VAT return or for your sales tax return, that type of thing. It's quite straightforward, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense?
Yeah.
All the expenses, all the income, you reconcile that all off. And with the software that's out there, it is actually fairly straightforward. So most businesses, most accountants will recommend you have a bookkeeping software anyway, regardless of what your business is, whether it's a coffee shop or an Amazon business or you're a plumber or whatever. They'll recommend using something like Xero or QuickBooks. So I'm not going to talk too much about them in this because they're quite general and they're not particularly Amazon focused, but they're very simply a case of having all the information coming in, which will be feeds from your bank, it will be feeds from Amazon, and then reconciling each one off.
Yeah, would you recommend those for that task?
Oh, 100%. Whatever business you're doing, even if you have a really expensive accountant, you'll need to do the bookkeeping yourselves. Yeah. That's the thing about accountants. It's not like you just run your business and then they do everything for you. No. You've still got to provide them the information. And
in a certain format.
Yeah, and that could be a shoebox full of receipts, or it could be like your bank statements and all that kind of stuff, or it could be access to your Xero account or your QuickBooks account.
Yeah.
So I recommend them. The other thing you do need, though, is some way to get the information from Amazon into that software, into that.
Does it not just plug in?
No, currently Amazon doesn't just plug in.
That's a bit weird.
And as you say, Amazon does have all the transactions, all the statements that you need, but they don't do it in the format that we want, which is really annoying because what we want is for each of those payments to get made from Amazon to your bank account, and those ones that happen every 2 weeks, we want to know the exact breakdown of what goes into that.
Yes.
And Amazon doesn't provide that. You have to kind of do a lot of you either need to take a shortcut and not record everything, or basically use a third-party software which will plug into Amazon, translate all those records, and then import them into Xero.
Yeah, and there's this detail, the kind of level of detail you have in your blog post about this.
Yeah, I talk about all the stuff on the blog post. The software that does that is called A2X. I think that stands for Amazon to Xero, but it works with kind of all those ones. A2X Accounting. I'll put a link to them in the show notes along with Xero and all the other ones.
Sounds very useful.
It is. And kind of with these three things, so you've got your Amazon account, you've got your bookkeeping account, and you've got your A2X. Everything just kind of plugs in. And so when it comes to doing your reconciling, you will simply go onto A2X. It will have a list of all the bank transfers that have happened from your Amazon accounts into your into your bank account. You'll go for each one and then basically label what each transaction is. So it'll give you a breakdown of what's going on. So, for instance, it will have your advertising spend.
Yeah.
So you will label that as advertising spend or whatever it is that you've called it in Xero. And these bookkeeping software are very versatile. So, for instance, the way I do it is I have it broken down by each country. And so I'll go onto A2X and I'll select which country it is due for. But you don't need to do that at all. You can just have it as this is an income, this is an expense.
Yeah. You can
this
keep
is
it
due,
simple.
This is due VAT, this is not due VAT.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then it just does it all for you. So, for instance, we are VAT registered, which means that every 3 months I need to produce a report that says how much VAT we owe. So every 3 months, my process is I go to A2X, I check each transaction, each statement that's come across, they're all correct. I click yes, 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 yes. They then appear in, I use Xero, they appear in my Xero. I then match them up to the bank transfers that come in from my Santander account.
Make sure the money's actually
Say,
there.
yes, 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 yes. And then I will click File VAT and it'll produce a VAT report. It will say I owe this amount in VAT and it's done. And it takes about maybe an hour every 3 months.
Yeah, that sounds quite simple.
It is quite simple. And then at the end of the year, my accountant will log on. He'll probably have a few questions for me.
Yeah.
He will ask me how much stock we have left. And then and how much that stock is worth, and then he'll file all the reports. And that normally takes a few emails, and it's quite a straightforward job.
What happens if you forget to do your 3-month VAT?
You get fined.
Okay.
So the first time you miss it, you are allowed to get away with it.
It sounds like the kind of thing, if you didn't know anything about it,
well,
if you hadn't done the research and you just started up a Amazon FBA account and you were selling your whatever pens and you didn't realise that you had to file a VAT every 3 months.
and I don't really want to labour the VAT point because most UK businesses won't need to be VAT registered.
Right.
And my general advice with this kind of stuff is you can kind of all do it backwards. Don't let this put you off starting your Amazon business.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to think about accounting until you've got something to account for.
Yes.
So these are headaches, but they're only headaches if you're doing well. And you can look back, if you've done a year and you've only made like £1,000, you can probably just, you don't really need to do it because it'll be below the threshold of what you need to report to the government.
So it's good to look at those thresholds.
Yeah. But if on the other hand, you do really well and in your first month you turn over £50,000, it's time for you to start thinking about accounting.
Yes.
So currently in the UK, the threshold for VAT is about £80,000, which means if you turn over less than £80,000, you don't need to bother with VAT at all.
A year.
12-month period.
12-month period.
So, yeah, and there are consequences for full net, but they're also very understanding. So I remember with my coffee shop, we shot past the VAT threshold by about double before we realised.
We had to pay it.
And so we registered, and I was absolutely bricking it because I was like, what are they going to charge us?
It's going to be an enormous bill.
They get this huge bill, backdated. And they basically said, no, it's okay, we'll just start taking VAT from now.
Well, that seems very fair.
Yeah, because it's a small business and they want you to succeed.
Yeah.
And generally when I've spoken to HMRC and all these people there, they're quite friendly. They're
That's
not
good.
as scary as they make out. They want you to do things correctly and pay your duty. And
But
generally,
they're not unreasonable in your experience.
They're not unreasonable. And here in the UK, we're generally quite small business friendly. You know, we want you to do well. And it means that a lot of the stuff, so if you do your own accounting, you can do it all online. There's quite easy things where you can just look at your Xero reports and then go on and just input the numbers. And so you can do it. And that's why we do it for our smaller businesses, where it's not worth paying an accountant to do it for us. It's not worth the added benefit from the savings he can make us from knowing what extra things we can expense that we didn't know about.
Because you can do it yourself.
Because we're just doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not as efficient. It takes a bit of time, but it's fine. And really, with this kind of way of doing your Amazon accounting, where you simply just have 3 bits of software, your Amazon, or 4 if you include your bank, your Amazon account, your A2X, and your Xero/QuickBooks. and your online banking, all the feeds go straight into your bookkeeping software. And then it's all just a case of saying, yes, this bank transaction relates to this Amazon payment. Yes, this bank transaction relates to this. And then it kind of doing it all for you. So will you fancy doing our accounts next time?
Absolutely
Do
not.
you think you could do it based on this little guide?
I'm joking. Yeah, I think I actually quite like doing processes. And I like once I've been given a guide, so something to follow. So for example, your blog, and it's kind of step by step. I think I could do it.
That's kind of one of the other advantages of using something like A2X, because they will have all the guides on there.
That's really good to know.
They're a company whose sole purpose is to make your accounting from Amazon businesses easier. And so they will have... So I've talked about it's difficult to find an Amazon accountant. That's not entirely true. Like, I was on A2X today just doing a bit of research for this episode, and they've got a page of full of partners that they recommend. That's companies who focus on... The problem is most of them are American focused, and generally I think they'll probably be a little bit expensive, and they're called stuff like the Amazon accountants. So the people who set up especially for Amazon businesses. And I think they're probably worthwhile, and they're probably worth talking to as well, especially if you're expanding to the US and you've got to deal with sales tax and a lot of other nightmare stuff there. So while the UK is very friendly for new businesses, the US is a bit more complicated because every state has a slightly different rule. And there's a lot of like grey areas as to who you owe certain taxes to, particularly their sales tax stuff.
Is it like dealing with a different country per state?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more complicated than it should be.
It is a lot more complicated, and that's why a lot of these accounting firms
set up in America.
There. But it's also the sort of thing that most people just get on with and get around it. You know, they only deal with it if they're big enough to. So at some point, you grow big enough, and you'll probably end up maybe sales tax registered in a bunch of different states and paying sales tax to a bunch of different states. But again, this is all set up like Amazon will work out how much sales tax you need to pay. A2X will take that into account. It will tell you which ones you need to register in, blah, blah, blah. And then that will send you over to Xero, and then Xero will, again, give you all the reports that your accountants need to file.
So the software is there to help you.
The software's there to help you. Each step is a little bit more of a headache.
Yes.
And my recommendation is just get on with it now, and then deal with these problems when you're successful enough that they become a problem.
Yes, and don't let it hold you back.
Don't let it hold you back. Because I do know a lot of people get so intimidated by this side of it, the bookkeeping, the accounting, the legal side, that they just won't ever start. And that is not the thing to do, because I think that the software is easy enough to use that anyone can work it out. I don't have an accounting background, and I do some of my accounts completely myself. But a lot of people aren't confident enough to do that, and to be honest, it's probably not the best advice for anyone, really. It's probably not the best advice for me either. It's better to pay someone, but it's better to find someone affordable who can advise you, and then leverage software to the max to do most of the hard work for you.
Because that's another thing. Like, you could employ an expensive accountant and them actually have no idea anything to do with Amazon accounts and VAT returns and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the problems I and a lot of other people come across, is they'll speak to an accountant and they'll know all about, that shoebox full of receipts,
yes,
but they won't know anything about Amazon. They won't know anything about how the software works.
That's so frustrating.
And they'll charge you by the hour to work it out. Do you want to pay someone £200 an hour to sit there clicking through the reports, copy and pasting things, filling out their spreadsheets? Or do you want to pay whatever it is, $50 a month for a software to just boop, 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 and do it yourself? Another option people do is they'll hire like a virtual assistant. They'll find someone in somewhere like the Philippines. They'll pay them £250 a month to work kind of half-time doing all their accounts for them. And I wrote a blog post about this not about VAs in particular, but about doing the accounting for Amazon. And again, I recommended using stuff like Xero and A2X. And one of the top comments were, well, that all adds up. Why don't I just hire a VA to do it yourself? And that's a fair enough point. And there's probably a level where having someone in-house to do your bookkeeping is worthwhile. But definitely for me, the hassle of training up someone with no skills from the Philippines to be good enough to do all this accounting,
like I'd have to, you don't want to spend.
It's time I don't want to spend. And there's also going to be lots of human error in there that software doesn't make. Software is always going to be accurate, whereas if there's a person doing it, you're going to hit a load of problems.
Well, that's a very Sammy philosophy there.
Yeah, isn't that the most me thing you've ever heard?
Yes.
Much rather hire a machine to do it than a person. That's not always true. There's definitely a level you get to where it's worth having people who know what they're doing working on this. But most of us will never get there, and most of us don't want to get there.
No.
We're doing this for the lifestyle behind it.
Not for the hassle.
Not for the hassle. And you can easily run a 6-figure profit business this way. Exactly, what we do, 6-7-figure profit businesses that don't need, it's only once you hit like high 7 figures, 8 figures, where you're doing large amounts in certain countries that have a lot of legislation around it. Even stuff like Germany. So we could be VAT registered in every country in Europe, but pretty much all of them have a distance selling VAT threshold that almost everybody will fall below. What does
that mean? Distance selling?
So we're a business here in the UK. We're selling in Germany.
Yeah.
When someone buys something from us here, it will get shipped from like an Amazon warehouse in the UK, and they'll still get a next day delivery because we're not that far away.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good service. But from the German government's point of view, the sale is coming from the UK.
Yeah.
And they say that you don't need to be VAT registered unless that distance selling hits a certain threshold. And I think for Germany, I might be wrong here, but I think it's about 100,000 euros a year.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of money.
It is.
Now, I am VAT registered in Germany. And again, this is all very simple to do because Amazon has some VAT services themselves for that type of thing. And A2X will still do all the transactions over. I just got to select different accounts for it. And Xero will still do all my bookkeeping. But for most people, that stuff doesn't really matter. All right, we've gone around in a few circles here, so let me bring it back, just talk about what is accounting, how we do Amazon FBA accounting. So what is accounting? It's simply reconciling all the money that comes in and out of your business, every expense that happens and every sale that happens. It is then tying them up so that on all your accounts that have balances, such as Amazon's got a balance built into it. Your bank account's got a balance built into it, your PayPal's got a balance built into it, that we know what every transaction that happens to that balance represents. And then from there, we can generate all the information we need, profit and loss, balance sheets, that type of stuff. So how does that relate to Amazon FBA bookkeeping? It means that we need to link up our Amazon accounts to our bookkeeping accounts. We use a software like A2X to do that. And then we just use a generic bookkeeping software like Xero or QuickBooks. And then you can either yourself turn that information into the accounts you file with the government, or you can hire an accountant to do it for you. And generally, my advice is, for most people, you want to hire an accountant, just a local one who knows how to use Xero or QuickBooks, which pretty much all of them will. And then they can tell you when you'll need to register for VAT, when sales tax becomes an issue, when distance selling becomes an issue, because that stuff they will know. All right.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that advice because it's almost like covering your back. It just saves you from doing all this research.
Yeah, and something I haven't really spoken about is that accountants will have professional indemnity insurance.
Yes.
Which means they are responsible for mess ups they make.
Yes.
If you've given them all the information and
they've missed the deadline.
And they missed deadlines, I think that's on them.
Yeah.
And they'll, tell you it's not, but it is. Same with lawyers. If a lawyer messes up, they're liable, and they got to have huge insurance policies to cover it.
Yeah, which gives you a bit of peace of mind.
Definitely. All right, can you believe it? We've spoken for 25 minutes on accounting.
No.
And you quite enjoyed it, didn't you? I can see your smile. No comment.
No comment, yes.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. And I'm sorry it's a bit more of a dry topic today, but hopefully you found it useful. And if you do have an Amazon business or you're thinking about doing it, then don't be too intimidated. In the show notes, I'm going to put links to all the stuff I've talked about, A2X, Xero, QuickBooks, and also some more in-depth articles I've written on these subjects, both on how to do accounting yourself, regardless of what type of business it is, and how to do accounting for your Amazon FBA business, which is a bit more specific to this topic. Thank you very much. And as always, please leave me a good review. In this world, 5-star is good. Anything less than that is bad. So if you want to give me a 4-star, I'd rather you sort of email me my criticism. And you can always get in touch with me, whether for good or bad feedback. That is at hello@samprecy.com. And the show notes are all found at samprecy.com. Thank you very much.
Bye.